Contracts tell stories. So what is the story that we're going to be telling? Are we going to be telling that you're an agent who knows what you're doing and you are going to get this done and going to close it? Or are we saying this is an agent who really doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know how to fill out the contracts, doesn't know what to ask for, and who knows if it's going to actually close? Welcome back to Build Your Business with Brittany, the real estate agent training series where we turn hustle into closings and knowledge into confidence. I'm Brittany Handura, real estate agent, coach, and investor, and I'm here to make real estate easy for you. I want to help you build a business you love and a life you're proud of. Let's dive in and level up your real estate game starting now. You don't get paid for chaos, you get paid for clarity. So today we're making contracts and timelines your power tools, not your pain points. I love that because basically so often people are like, this is so difficult and I don't know what's coming and it's such a stressor. And so we're trying to eliminate all of that stress and we're trying to make this your power tools because like I always say, contracts tell stories. So what is the story that we're going to be telling? Are we going to be telling that you're an agent who knows what you're doing and you are going to get this done and going to close it? Or are we saying this is an agent who really doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know how to fill out the contracts, doesn't know what to ask for, and who knows if it's going to actually close? So we want to make sure that we are that first agent. So the goal of today, we want to bulletproof your knowledge of every contract and form, every contract that you're going to need. It's not going to be like the little disclosures and things like that are important today. The important things are just knowing what form comes when. The outcome of this is going to be that we have confident conversations, we have protected clients, and we have clean closings. So those confident conversations are something that I always tell you are so important to make sure that you are presenting with confidence, because that's one of the main ways that your client is going to know that they can trust you. And so if we know how to protect our clients, how to get to the closing, and how to make that as clean as possible, our clients are going to trust us, right? Let's jump in and talk about the life of a transaction. I actually have this form for you. So you can just email me and get this form. You can hang it up in your office so that you know exactly what's coming next. Or you can, email me, BrittanyHanduraRE @gmail.com. Or if you're watching the video, just click in the video, click the link below and you'll get the freebie, Life of a Transaction. So number one, your offer is accepted. Yay, celebrate. So on both sides of the transaction, this is going to be happening. So you have your RPA, which is your offer. And then the SCO is going to be the seller counter offer, and the BCO is a buyer counter offer. So now you also have the SMCO, which is a seller multiple counter offer. You don't have a BMCO, a buyer multiple counter offer, because the only person who's going to be sending out multiple counter offers is going to be the seller. So you either have an SCO or an SMCO, seller counter offer or seller multiple counter offer. And the way that you know if you're in competition with other agents is when they send you that seller multiple counter offer. So if you just get an SCO, the seller counter offer, you know that it's only you and the seller talking to each other. There aren't other players in the game. So this is great. Usually how it happens is the offer comes in, and even if the offer is really super clean, there are usually some things that need to be cleaned up. And so the way that gets cleaned up is typically with an SCO, a seller counter offer. Sometimes you can write on there that it's agreed with the exception of blah, 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 and then just sign the RPA and be done with it. But it's not as clean that way. It's not as common that way. And so usually what you're going to see is the RPA, the residential purchase agreement, which is the initial offer. Then the SCO, which is going to be the seller counter offer. And even if it's like a perfect offer, they're basically saying, yes, we accept as is. They might have to clean it up. They might have to say, here's our escrow, here's our title, this timeline we want to adjust, whatever it is. They're going to clean it up a little. Or they can come back and say, nope, we want to change this whole thing. I want it to be your highest and best purchase price. I want it to be different terms completely. I want it to close in this many days. Whatever it is, you can change it completely. These forms are where you do it. And then the buyer counteroffer comes, and that buyer counteroffer is going to be basically a response. The buyer counteroffer is a response to the seller counteroffer. So that buyer counteroffer is going to say, okay, well, we're agreeing to certain things in the seller counteroffer, but not everything. If they agree to everything in the seller counteroffer, they can just sign off on that and you have an accepted offer. But if they're saying, well, we'll agree to this, but not quite, or here's our highest and best offer, whatever it is, that's when you would get a BCO. Typically, we don't see the counter offers going back and forth more than like 2 or 3 times. So this is something that you are, you're going back and forth, but it's not a ton of back and forth. Usually, as soon as it's signed, that's when it's agreed. Now, importantly, when we're talking about the offer being accepted, the offer can be accepted on any day of the week. So if you're going back and forth and it turns into the weekend, you can have an accepted offer on a Saturday. So you're not going to be able to open escrow until the following Monday or the following business day. So even if it's a holiday, a Tuesday, but your timelines begin at the accepted offer, at the date that everybody has signed and agreed. So if the final buyer or final seller agrees that signature is on a Saturday, that's when the timelines begin, even if escrow doesn't open for another few days. All right, let me check the chat. I saw that we had a chat. Okay, so Jasmine says, is there a scenario where a seller would send an SCO, a seller counteroffer, to multiple buyers instead of sending an SMCO that would alert you that there are multiple offers? So there should not be. If they are sending it to multiple people, it should always come through as an SMCO. However, there are times when this happens, like if they're saying, hey, I'm going to send you a seller counteroffer, I'm going to send you the SCO, and then after that, another offer comes in, and then they want to send also, they want to submit the offers in that way. So if that's the case, that like they're already in conversation, then what they send to the next person needs to be an SMCO. But they don't need to change what they're already doing. Now, if it changes it dramatically, they may want to say, you know what, let me send you another one and it's just going to be an SMCO. But in general, you're just going to keep going back and forth with this, but they should always tell you if another offer has come in and the seller is going to respond to that. It doesn't happen a lot that way, but I have had it happen that way. And so as long as the agent is transparent and upfront and you guys are having a conversation about it, then the paperwork side of it should still be good. But if they are sending it to multiple people, they should only be sending it. They should be sending that SMCO instead of a SCO. Did that make sense? I hope that helped. Number 2, you're going to get the wire. Your clients are going to wire in the EMD, which is the earnest money deposit, or on our forms called the initial deposit. Oh, Jasmine, you're welcome. Thank you. So that EMD typically has 3 days. That's the default. If you want to change it and you want to say it needs to come in within 24 hours, you can change that. But the default is within 3 days. And now remember, timelines are a little bit different when it comes to things with dealing with money. So we have timelines for contingencies, we have timelines for disclosures coming, we have timelines for all kinds of things. But when we're talking about money things like wiring in an EMD, we generally want to say those are business days. So they have 3 business days to get the money in. Now, this doesn't say this in the form, which I think it should, just to make it clear, because it is a little bit confusing for a lot of people. But you can know it's 3 business days. So that means if you have an accepted offer on a Friday, that's day 0. then day 1 is not until the following business day, which is going to be, let's say, Monday. Day 2 is going to be Tuesday, and day 3 is going to be Wednesday. So even though they accepted on a Friday, they still actually have until Wednesday to get that EMD in, to get that earnest money deposit in. So just keep in mind that it's 3 business days, mostly for things with money involved. When you're talking about contingencies, disclosures, those kind of timelines, those are calendar days. So if you say 10 days for your inspections to be done, that's 10 calendar days, regardless of holidays, weekends, or anything. All right, now, next up, we have seller disclosures. These come pretty quickly in because usually the default, I think, is 5 days or 7 days. It's pretty quick that the seller disclosures need to be into the buyer. So in California, we have the SPQ and the TDS. The SPQ is the seller property questionnaire. The TDS is the transfer disclosure statement. These actually say very similar things, but the reason they don't combine them is because one of them you don't have to fill out if it is not owner occupied, and the other one you still do. So they say very similar things. And basically, this is just a disclosure to the buyer. This is the seller saying, here's what I know to be true of the house. You don't have to go digging. If you say, hey, I know that there was something done with our house, but I don't have permits for it, or I don't have the information for it, or I don't have a warranty for it, or whatever. It's not meant to go digging. It's meant to be disclosing, saying, here's what we did. So if you maybe did some work in your house, but it wasn't permitted, or if you had hired a handyman, but it wasn't like a licensed person, that's the kind of stuff you're disclosing. Was it painted recently? Was it remodeled recently? Are there any noises or odors or anything like that? You're just telling the buyer what it is. Now, what I usually do is when I have a listing, I will send these disclosures to my seller pretty much right away, even before we actually list it on the MLS. Because if it goes really quickly, I want to be able to take that off their plate and not have them have to worry about now they have to fill out their or their SPQ and TDS really fast. I want them to just be done with it and able to move on. The TC stores it, and then your TC will send it to your to the buyer clients. Now, we haven't talked about this. Your TC is your transaction coordinator, and your TC is the one who really deals with all of the paperwork. You can choose to have a TC or not. I always say TCs are worth their weight in gold, as long as they're a good one. But most of the ones I've worked with have been pretty good. Their job is not to negotiate on your behalf. Their job is to it's to get signatures for the forms and be able to upload it for your compliance and that kind of thing. Their job is not to write up exactly what you want it to say. They're not writing up the offers. They're not writing any of this stuff. So what I'm telling you right now are things that are outside of what a TC is going to be sending out. These are things that you as the agent are going to be responsible for. The TDS and SPQ, these specifically get sent, and the agent is not supposed to help with it in any way. So obviously you can say, here's what this means. Here, you're reading it, you can help them with reading it or whatever, but you are not helping them with it. You're not saying, oh, it looks like you painted recently. You should write that in there. You're not saying, oh, you don't know the answer to that. Don't worry about it. You are specifically not saying anything about this. You're just saying, here's how to fill it out. Now you need to fill it out. I really like using Glide right now. I think it's the easiest way to fill it out. It just walks the seller through every step, and then in the end, it prints it out for you in the form that you need it. So I think it's super easy, and I really like doing that. I think it's much easier than the actual form that we have. Number 4, we have appraisal. The lender orders the appraisal. So your job as the agent is not to order the appraisal. You don't have to do that. As the listing agent, you usually need to coordinate with the lender, but you don't need to order the appraisal. You don't need to do anything. What you want to do as the agent on either side is you want to make sure the lender has ordered the appraisal, because sometimes the appraisal gets waived. Sometimes it doesn't need to happen. Now, if you have a cash offer, the appraisal doesn't matter. You don't have to have an appraisal. They can choose to have an appraisal if they want, but most of the time they don't do that because it doesn't matter. The house is worth what the buyer is willing to pay for it. So the appraisal really comes when you have a loan. And so the lender is the one who orders the appraisal. They're the one who determines who is going to do the appraisal. And really it's like they have this pool of appraisals that have been approved and they just go with whoever is the quickest one. So you as the agent don't have any say on the appraisal or anything like that. So the lender orders it. Your job as the agent is just to make sure it has been ordered, because a lot of times that gets slipped through the cracks and you want to make sure that that is really happening pretty quickly, because sometimes just depending on the load of the appraiser, it can take a little while and you don't want that to be something that like stops you. All right, I saw in the chat we had a question. Oh, is Glide an app? Yeah, so Glide, it has an app, but it's also a website. And if you go on, I know for us, we have through our, what's it called? Through our association, we have access to Glide for free. So you just go to glide.com or Glide Real Estate or something like that, and you can find it. You can find it online. It's really easy to find, but it's very, smooth and user-friendly, I would say. But I don't use it that much in my actual managing of the transaction, but my TC uses it. So it's very helpful for me to see, oh, that has been sent out for signatures and hasn't been signed yet. So I can nudge my client and say, hey, can you jump on that, make sure to get that signed. This is what it means. This is what it says. So anyway, it's just, Glide is basically just a place to house your transaction. You still need to send it to compliance. So for us in KW, that's command. For other places, that's going to be, different forms. You still have to submit it to whatever your compliance is. It doesn't pull directly from that, but it is a place. Sorry, I have something in my eyeball. It is a place that is basically all your forms get signed and then they can live and be stored. All right, how are we doing? Any other questions? Make sure to keep popping them in the chat. I am happy to answer any questions as we go. This is a very tactical kind of information. So if you do have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Number 5, inspections. So as you can tell, we're kind of going in order. So these inspections and the appraisal generally go like hand in hand, but they don't have to. A lot of times your inspections will come first, but you want to make sure that the appraisal is ordered right away. Before we continue, I want to remind you that if you're looking for even more real estate resources like an open house roadmap or a social media content calendar, then click the freebie link below because I have all kinds of resources to make real estate easy for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And now let's jump back in. So the inspections will come, and the forms that you have with that, at least in California, are RR, which is the request for repair, and RRRR, quad R sometimes called, which is the response to request for repair. What's the fourth R? Response for request for repair? I don't know. I'm sure it stands for something, but now that I'm thinking about it, I have no idea what it is. Okay, so we have the RR and the RRRR. So the RR comes from the buyer. The buyer is going to say, we did our inspections and these certain safety concerns were called out. So we want this either fixed or we want to ask for a credit. Either way, that's going to come on the RR. Now, importantly, this RR does not go to the lender. The lender does not want to see this. And the reason is because anything that pops up like that, now the underwriters are going to say, oh, what is this? Now we need to address this. We need to make sure that this is fixed before we are going to approve the loan. So your lender should not ever see this because basically the house is being sold as is, and we want it to be sold as is. We don't want to worry about any repairs or anything like that. If they ask for a credit, so if you say, so let's just say you as the buyer's agent submit the RR. They're saying there's holes in the roof, there's holes in the slab foundation, there's cracks on the siding, whatever it is. This is pretty significant. And so they're saying, hey, instead of fixing all that, just give us a credit for $25,000. So they're going to send the RR and it's going to say credit $25,000. And in the body of the email, you can write to the agent and say, hey, here's a list of all of the things that we saw. Instead of asking for all of that to be repaired, we're just asking for $25,000. So now the seller can now respond to that. So the seller can say, yep, that seems fair. Let's agree to that and sign off on it. Or they can say, no way, we're not going to agree to that, but we'll give a little bit. Or they're going to say, nope, absolutely not. So those are your really basic 3 options. Yes, no, let's meet in the middle somewhere. And so then the RRRR comes in as a response. You can do all of this on the RR because it says the seller accepts with these conditions or with these exceptions. And so you can write that in. But that does you just want to make sure that it's clear. But the RRRR comes in and then they say, okay, well, we're not going to agree to $25,000, but here's $15,000. If the buyer says yes, they'll sign off on it. It's agreed. Again, this does not go anywhere. It does go places. Your TC needs it. Your TC is going to send it to escrow. It does not go to your lender. So we have these 2 forms that now everybody's agreed that the buyer and seller have agreed to $15,000 in a credit. So the lender does need to know that, but they don't want to see the inspection report, or they don't want to see the RR and the request for repairs or anything. So now what you're going to do is you're going to create an addendum, and this your TC can do. You're going to create an addendum and say, hey, can you just, you're going to ask your TC, can you just fill this out and say that we're asking for the seller's going to pay the buyer a $15,000 credit, and you're going to say it's for closing costs. Maybe you're going to say it's for recurring and non-recurring closing costs. It depends on how the lender wants it to be worded. But basically, as long as the credit is lower than the closing cost amount, it can be credited to the closing costs. If it is higher than that, the lender is not going to be able to accept that. They're not going to be able to say, okay, yeah, it can be credited as closing costs. So track with me here. So if your buyer's closing costs are $10,000, but the seller has agreed to $15,000 in a credit, the lender's not going to agree to that. So you have a couple of options. You could either lower the purchase price to $15,000, or you could do a little combo and say, hey, could you give us a credit for $10,000 and then fix the roof, or fix one of these things so that it's not, so that you still meet those guidelines. So you just have to keep that in mind. All of this is a negotiation, and this is really your secondary negotiation, because almost always there are going to be times that it comes up in the inspections that you need to do things or fix things. So this is going to be another point of negotiations. And you want to make sure that you know what you're doing with this RR. Are we tracking there? Do we have any questions about that? I know it kind of felt a little confusing even for me to say it. So I hope you guys were tracking. All right, we're good. Let's keep rolling. All right, so number 6, the agent visual disclosure, agent visual inspection disclosure, otherwise known as the AVID. So this AVID, actually, the listing agent and the buyer agent both fill out. I put it here during the life of the transaction because typically this gets filled out by the buyer's agent when the inspections happen. Now, you're not putting anything about the inspections. You're really just walking through and you're saying, what do I, as the agent, see? Technically, you're looking at things that you can sense. Think of it in that way. You're looking at things you can smell, taste. Hopefully you're not tasting anything as you walk through. But if you can hear things, so maybe, like maybe you're hearing a baseball game being played next door, you want to just mark that, hey, just so you know, this is what I'm hearing. Anything that you're seeing. Now, also keep in mind, you are not an expert in all of these things. So if you see black stuff on the ceiling, you don't want to say there's mold on the ceiling, because is it mold? You're not 100% sure. Has it been remediated and it's just left there? Could it be paint? Who knows? So you want to just say stain on the ceiling. You don't want to use adjectives, big, ugly, gross, small, nothing like that. You just want to say, you want to give like a location of it. Stain in primary bedroom over, by the window or something like that, where you're saying, here's where it is, so you can draw their attention to it. But you're not saying anything more. There's nothing descriptive about this. We're not saying it looks like mold, it looks like water damage, it could be this. You're just saying, here's what I'm seeing. A lot of times we see stains in the grout in the bathrooms that could be mold. And so you're just drawing their attention again to say there are stains in the grout. There are cracks in the tile. Things like that we want to draw the buyer's attention to so that they see it, and so that we are saying, just so you know, this is what we're seeing, and they can determine whether they want to move forward or not. Or maybe they're saying, yeah, I do see that, and it does look like mold, so I want to get a professional in here to identify it and to really tell me what it is. Or maybe they're saying, I see that, it's not a big deal, I'll deal with that after I move in. It doesn't matter what they decide. You just want to be able to say, hey, I have let you know that this is here, and now you decide what you want to do with that. Now, the listing agent does the same thing. Oftentimes when I'm doing it, I do it when we're doing photos, things like that. So if I go again, I don't want to do it the first time I'm there because there's a lot going on during that listing appointment. But the second time I come for photos or staging or whatever it might be, that's when I'll go around and I'll fill out my AVID. Now, another pro tip is that Glide, this is the first thing I started using Glide for. Glide makes the AVID super easy because it's the same thing where it's a workflow and you walk through it and they're asking questions and you're saying, okay, now I'm in the kitchen. Here's what I see. Now I'm in the bathroom. Here's what I see. Bathroom number 1, bathroom number 2, primary bedroom, whatever it is. And you're saying, this is what I'm seeing. And then at the end, it spits out a form for you. So it makes it very nice and easy. So I highly recommend using Glide for your AVID. Now, number 7, we're moving on to the contingency removal called the CR, contingency removal. It's nice that it's a normal name, not the RRRR, where I don't know where that 4th R comes from. So with our contingency removal, this is when this is a form that we use when we want to remove any of our contingencies. We can use it to remove all contingencies. However, keep in mind that your contingencies are what are protecting your buyer. And so if there's anything still left unseen, unread, we don't know what's going on, you want to say, well, we're removing all contingencies except this one. Or we're removing our loan contingency and our appraisal contingency or our inspection contingency. Usually, by the way, with the RR, as soon as it's agreed, there is a note in there saying this contingency is removed as soon as it's agreed. So that contingency is actively gone. But remember, for the rest of your contingencies, you have to proactively remove those contingencies. It's not something that you just leave it on. So removing those contingencies, you use the form RR or CR, and those contingencies are going to be removed. But you can do it either specific contingencies, or you can say all except, or you can say we're removing all contingencies. So you have to proactively remove the contingencies, and you want to do it in a timely way. So if you're the listing agent, you want to be saying, hey, your contingency removals are due. I want them. If you're the listing agent and they're not removing their contingencies, you can send a notice to perform, which gives them 2 days to perform. And if they don't, then the seller has the right to cancel. Obviously, as the buyer's agent, you don't want to get to that point. And if you have good communication, usually the agent is going to just, say, okay, well, keep it going. Let's get it as soon as you have it or whatever. But there are some agents which will send those notice to performs just to make sure that they have the paperwork. That's just what they do, is they send the notice to perform. Personally, I do it a little bit more like I have the conversation and it's a personal interaction, because the whole point too is that you want to maintain a good positive relationship with the other side of the transaction. You don't want it to be like so stringent that the other person is like, ugh, I never want to work with her again. So I always try and just have like good conversation. And if I'm going to send a notice to perform, I always say, hey, I'm going to send the notice to perform just so that your clients know that, this is something that we need pretty quick. All right, then we have the final walkthrough. This is called the VP form, the verification of property. The final walkthrough comes about 5 days or less prior to close of escrow. So again, this is something where you're communicating with the listing agent to say, maybe they haven't moved out yet. Maybe they're almost there. They're going to move out, whatever it is. And so you want to push it to like 2 days before closing or the day before closing or something like that. Your final walkthrough is just for you to organize with the other agent. And what you're looking for are things that are substantially different from like what they're not expecting. So if there's like a hole punched in the wall and they didn't see that, or maybe you asked for repairs to be done and they haven't completed that yet, that's what you would talk about on the final walkthrough. So you would say, hey, we're not signing off on this until these things are complete. But the goal of the VP is to have it actually be empty, because what it says is it's substantially the same as what we were expecting, except X, Y, and Z. So if it's blank, that's what we're going for, because it's going to say that it's the same and is what you accepted. Number 9, wire in the balance of the funds. So this is going to be going to escrow, through escrow, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to be with the lender and all of that. So you as the agent are not necessarily like in the weeds of all of this. At this point, your client has been talking to the lender and the escrow officer directly. So they're going to make sure this is all happening. But this is going to be the balance of the down payment. Or if they're paying in cash, this is going to be the balance of whatever they owe. So this goes through escrow in our area, and it's going to be dealt with the lender and escrow. And then finally, number 10, we are going to record and close, and then we're going to celebrate. Woohoo! Now, keep in mind that for recording and closing, the recording happens. It could be same day recording and closing, or it could be next day. So for me in my county, we do same day recording. So as long as it's in by a certain time, we can record the same day. But I know in LA County, they cannot. They have to wait 1 day to close. So just keep that in mind, that it's not necessarily the same day that you record, but as soon as you are recorded, that means you're closed. And typically, what's default on the RPA right now is that as soon as you record, that is when your client gets the keys. They get to take possession of the property. It's at recordation. So it's as soon as it records, that's when it is closed and they get to take possession. All right, so we've walked through the life of that transaction. I hope this was helpful for you. Remember, you can have access to this and you can pin it up in your office or have it just as like a little reminder for you. I hope that helped. And don't forget, we're here live every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Join me live to get your questions answered in real time by registering at the link in the description below. Let's keep building, growing, and closing those deals. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with another agent who needs this. You've got this, and I've got you. And I'll see you in the next video.